Hey guys, how's it going? This is Tyrael, and I want to welcome you to the fourth Project LP1 video where I try and take down Uber with deterministic LP1 items and reasonable gear. This week, up for the kill, we have Time Rot Javelin, and this video is going to be a little bit different than the previous ones. It's not just going to be my Uber kill. This is because this attempt warranted some serious feedback about how it went, and I want to sort of get into it and let you guys check out the fight, and then we can go from there because I want to explain the full kill and the differences that I found specifically with Volka's guide that he has up on Maxroll. I'll link it in the description so you can go take a look at it. But basically, here the setup is you're using Black Blade of Chaos and you're scaling what I thought was to be dexterity, and then he has dex slammed on his anchor, and then the usual suspects here, foot of the mountain for its attributes. He has move speed and traversal frenzy proc. Slammed into the secondary affix. He has cast speed on atrophies, which according to him, it does more damage, I believe. If you look at this guide and take a look at it, there's a cast speed boost. That's why you would do the frenzy proc as well. The cast speed boost does more damage, so more damage over time on Nihilus. And then he has a 4 prop helm that's basically just reduced crit damage taken, plus 4 to anomaly, chance to inflict, time run on void hit, health and health. And then he has the fifth prop is sealed, which I also just didn't copy because I tried. Like, I think that's pushing the bounds of reasonable in my opinion. And I'll go over to here to my gear in a second so you can see what we've ended up actually doing. Now over here on our side, I decided to go with the 4 prop helm instead of the 5 prop helm with the same base. I tried to make it, T7 triple five. I think even T7 triple five here for these specific stats is probably pushing the envelope a little bit, but I have to say it is extremely important. It was a big deal. The difference, so I'm like at 3100 HP. The difference between 3100 HP and 2990 is the difference between getting one shot and surviving some of the hits on the fight from his melees when you're in bad positions and you just need the extra bit of health. I had a lot of different runs, a lot of different ones with 2900 HP that just you ended up dying because you take 2 hits of damage. You take a little bit of degen before that, and then he hits you and you instantly die and the run's over. So that was very frustrating and caused a lot of problems. Trying to figure out some of the other pieces. He uh, he put dexterity on his rings in his planner, but if you go take a look at his video at the end where he shows his gear, I think this is actually the exact right spot. He shows strength slammed in them. I actually didn't know this for probably a couple hundred attempts. Um, at the end of the day, I went through and slammed or just did T7 strength on some Ellie rings. So this is just Ellie ring T7 strength, Ellie ring T7 strength, Fizz and Ellie res, because you need those to cap your Ellie res. Normally, people are using red rings to do those things for the easy 20 res all, but you need your Ellie res roll and they're essentially asking being faux red rings, and then you get your fizz res. So I did do this kill with low amounts of necrotic and poison res. Because those are the two things that you really don't need to worry about. I mean, necrotic res should never come into play. You're not getting hit by anything necrotic, or you shouldn't be inside of Uber when you're doing runs like this, so you can basically just ignore it. But poison res, you do get hit from the poison vines on the floor, and that can sometimes kill you and can be really frustrating. So that's the one I evened out through some of my idols. Now you can see on some of his idols, he has really maxed out stuff. Damage over time, chance to inflict time run on hit, chance to inflict time run on hit, void damage, increased void damage, things like that. And it's pretty much everywhere on his gear where you can get it. Now, something that's super important that we figured out later in the runs, because I never played this build before. If you go take a look at the passive tree, you have rot grip, and he explains this in his guide, where essentially, time rot damage for 1% slow chance of void skills, time rot damage for 1% time rot chance with void skills. So slow chance, void, time rot on hit chance, things like that become essentially, I believe, more multipliers. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. But that becomes the main prior stat. So you're talking about stacking damage over time and chance to apply time round and hit, and those all become more multipliers you want. And obviously, increased void damage over time doesn't, but void damage over time, pretty much anything you can get. I when I do these runs, I try not to put fully maxed out idols with like the T5 Weaver chance slams on them. I did on this one because I don't want to do that because I think they're relatively rare and sometimes you can do 50 60 runs or something like that and not get the right idol with this thing you need. So I try to keep my idols blank for these runs. So like these two guys, which totally just blank, they didn't have anything on them. And then these, are just regular idols, right? So you got a health gain on kill, which doesn't matter, but it's the increased health we're looking for. These are super important. The increased health and the Ellie res on these two, and this one as well. Those are all the same. That really helps cap the Ellie res because the rings just don't do it on this build. You don't have enough static Ellie res from the tree. And then these idols, which I think I took directly from somebody else. I don't remember who's. I think someone in my stream linked me, and I thought that was an interesting thing because you do have problems taking damage from damage over time. So all the degens in the fight actually cause a huge amount of issues, and I can talk about that in a minute when I go through it. Um, so less damage over time taken. So this one has void res because I needed to cap my void res, which is almost capped. And then this is poison res and this is poison res. As for the blessings, I'm pretty sure it's a direct copy of sorry, idols, blessings. Yeah, so void damage, chance to slow on hit, armor and mana. So for me, the my void damage rolled. I think in the video it was something like 78 or 68. It wasn't very high. This rolled relatively low. My armor almost max rolled. My armor here percent armor was low, and I think my mana was like a medium roll. I generate these when I, create the character and sort of start the run, and I try not to change them unless they're really bad. So if they're super low roll, I might go try and find a better one, but I try and keep it relatively organic and just something that might actually, happen when you're doing the runs. So I did slam dexterity on the Anchor of Oblivion, just like Volko said he did in his guide. I didn't swap one to strength when I noticed that he changed his rings to strength, or in his kill he had strength rings. I'm still not sure what the best scaler is for that. You're supposed to get scaling, so dexterity per what is it? Void penetration per 5 dexterity. You're supposed to get really good scaling, obviously, out of that, and that's why I assumed he was scaling dex. But in his video, it was strength on his rings, like I said, and I don't know why that is. I'm still not entirely convinced that the cast speed and the frenzy proc from the things, from the movement skill is doing massive extra damage. I had multiple different Foot of the Mountains in my inventory, all with different, move speed, percentage health. I had the traversal skill effect on here, and all different, a couple different attributes. So like anywhere between 8 to 12. I tried all of those. They were all not giving good results, not giving insane DPS or anything like that. So I ended up going with the move speed. As for the Viper Tail, the cooldown recovery, I tried percent HP for a long time, but the cooldown recovery is really noticeable. I think one cooldown recovery works out just fine because you end up doing Void Cleave Javelin and then Anomaly, and that's how you sort of proc your damage. And if you actually have two cooldown recovery speeds, the timing of it can get a little bit strange. And if you have one less, the timing also feels really odd. So if you actually have no cooldown recovery from this belt, you can do the opening combo, which is Void Cleave, Javelin, and Anomaly, and then you get one more. You get one more Void Cleave, one more Javelin, and one more Anomaly right before he slams in the initial slam, and it is right at the edge. We're talking milliseconds between the ability to proc a second hit of damage and dying. So it's very close in the opening hit. So it makes it much more comfortable if you have CDR on your belt. Um, I think that covers it for the gear. If we go take a look at the passives, I copied his passives absolutely directly. So everything you find in this guide here, this is think yeah, okay. So I did swap this one. I wanted 8 out of 8 here because I needed the extra void res because I don't have uh the the red rings, but everything else should be the same. So he's got 83 points. I have 83 points. inside of Void Knight, and I just went through and sorry, I just went through and recopied all this. So I did play with some of this stuff. I did. That means I'm not crit capped. I think if you look at my defenses, or is it general? I think it's less damage taken time from crits. I thought it was in defenses somewhere. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm even looking at it. Oh, reduced bonus damage from crit strikes. There it is. So it is only 68. I'm only getting it from the helm. Occasionally you do get crit and the run is over, and that's sort of just how it is. But we're not mapping in this build. This is specifically for killing Uber, so it's kind of whatever. I would adjust some of these points. I did at one point adjust some of these points because it's void damage over time as well, and max out my crit reduction like 96, 97 or something like that. With the 5 or 6 points in here. I decided I didn't want to do that for this kill after playing with it for a while. I'm not entirely convinced. This 3 pointer is actually worth it. Not sure how much effect it actually had. And it's just hard to tell with the way the build plays. But everything else, should be the same that you see in Volca's calculator. As for the skills, everything was also the same. So I have where is his skills? Sorry, the Maxwell site is not something I use a lot. Basically, everything that he is using in his talent calculator, I have allocated. And there's a good reason I'm going over all of this is so I can specifically show you something that I found particularly interesting, and that's why I wanted to sort of explain everything that's going on. So you'll see all of this in the end of the video, where I show everything that's allocated, and then you can sort of take a look at anything that I did. But if we go into the opening attack, the opening pull on Volka's video really quick, I wanted to show something super interesting. Um, so if you go take a look at this, basically the combo opener is to do a charge and then you drop your javelin and then you proc your anomaly and you do a bunch of giga damage. So you can see here that he easily procced into the energy shield and then massive amounts of damage here, right? So before the first slam really went off, we're talking about what is it, 28% energy shield. So if you go look, and I have my video pulled up here, if you take a look at this, this is my attempt with really, really similar gear. Everything I could find is very similar to what Volca is doing in the build video, and the only major difference is not having red rings. So you can see my first attack, it did not proc the energy shield at all. We're not even in the energy shield yet. We're not past 80%. He was already procced in the bit. And then you can get another combo off. And then after hitting that combo, I get to 64% energy shield with very, very similar gear, right? So I mean, look at the differences. We're talking about can I do theater mode on this? Yeah. So we're talking about 28% versus 64%. Now, I don't know why this is. I'm not saying Volca is wrong. That's not my intent here. I just noting that this was a huge problem because that because of the fact that the damage difference was this drastic. It changed a massive amount of the fight through the entirety of the whole thing. I'll go over the fight and what I sort of had to change to make this work. I spent 350 pulls on Uber, I think. I want to say I had a good 250 plus videos on the first night when it was solid 7 or 8 hours. And then I did another 4 hours after that today. So that was like a total of 11 hours of time with around 350 pulls on this fight to like really smooth it out. Um, I spent a lot of times not getting the proper results from the damage combo. Sometimes you do it and it just doesn't go off. You do zero damage, which is super frustrating because sometimes it happens on the open pull. When you do like this secondary hit right here, you could do this, and then sometimes nothing happens. You do no damage, and the only thing that you need to do, because the damage isn't what Volca was seeing, the only thing you need to do is leave the instance and then go try again because you need to restart it. Because this is actually so pressed for time and it's so bad and inconsistent when it comes to leech with the lasers in the final circle. You are really pressed for time. You have to try, you can sort of dance around in the fight and you have some breath in areas like phases 2 and 3, when Harbinger 1 is out and Harbinger 2 is out, but you really are pressed for time. You need to get in much damage as you possibly can. You need to always be doing damage to the boss. If the damage was at the level of Volca that Volca was seeing, it would be completely different in fight. I mean, Volca skips the entire final phase of the fight, and we're nowhere near being able to do that. You have to do a full phase of the fight, and in my opinion, it ends up being harder than I was actually very surprised. It ends up being harder than the what is it? The serpent venom that I was stuck on for a little bit. It's definitely harder than a racing strike. I was very surprised to have to think about the fact that this is definitely harder than a racing strike. So now I want to go through the fight really quick and talk about like how we sort of ended up doing this. So right off the rip, one of the things that is extremely frustrating, and I cannot stand this. If you take a look and you end up getting this point. Let me close this really quickly and then pull open my build planner so it's side by side. So you go to Void Cleave and you end up getting Abyssal Walker, and then you end up getting Gravity's Edge. So you can travel much further with Void Cleave and is no longer a cooldown, but is now a traversal skill. And then you get a secondary point of Nether Charge. Now, something that did is when they released WASD, it seemed I can't decide how they chose which skills will follow your mouse and which skills will follow your character movement when you're working with them. Because if you allocate healing hands and you're using healing hands, it goes to where your mouse cursor is. But the problem with Void Cleave is it does not. So Void Cleave is based on your movement, and healing hands is based on your mouse cursor. So because of Void Cleave being based on your movement in this, and in my opinion, it is very, very important that your dodging is based on your movement and your movement key is based on your mouse. Because this fight requires very particular placement of everything that you need to be able to do. So if you're dodging out of something and you're trying to get to exactly the pixel spot, the pixel perfect spot where Uber needs to take this damage or you need to be out of some AoE, you want to be able to place your mouse cursor there. You want to be able to just drag over here, press a button, and then not worry about how to get there. You cannot do that with Void Cleave. And in my opinion, that takes Void Cleave, like maybe Void Cleave is an A tier traversal skill while clearing maps or going through echoes. It makes it an absolute C plus tier movement skill in this fight. It has gotten me killed an insane amount of times. We're talking 100 pulls straight up, just dying because Void Cleave didn't operate the way I needed it to operate. Another thing that is very frustrating is it has two charges, and it is super easy to accidentally press the second charge. And sometimes you will charge right, and then you won't be expecting to charge again. So you charge in a completely random direction, and then you'll charge directly into a ground slam or something like that, and you completely die. That is one of the reasons why when I start this fight, to minimize the amount of accidents that we can sort of have during this fight, I start this by sitting on the edge of him. So all I have to do is press my right directional key and then charge. And that's how I basically ended up starting the fight in the most consistent way. Something else that's super frustrating. So you charge this, drop a javelin, and then you have to move the beam a little bit. But then you have to, after you proc your anomaly, which procs all your damage, you go to the other edge of the circle because Void Cleave has a minimum dashing distance that you cannot control. So it happens to be the exact distance of the circle from edge to edge. So if you are in any other position, normally you would just be able to put your mouse cursor over here and dash to it, and then it would be fine. But you can't do that with Void Cleave. So you have to come to the edge of the circle right here and then dash in, and then you can see right there, it is exactly on the edge of me being, at death. Um, so it's the only way you can do this, and you dodge in, and then you proc another javelin, and then you hit anomaly again. You can see the damage chunk come out of them right there. And then I drag him over here to the left. Now, normally on something like with this amount of damage, not a lot of people know this, but the harbinger does come out of this side on the left, which is generally if you have the massive amount of damage that people want when they're doing this fight, you want to go left first, in my opinion. And that makes this fight change drastically versus going right. Now, in my Eraser Strike video, you can see that I go right first because I only get him to about this status. So, in my opinion, if you're getting him to somewhere in this quadrant, going right first and buying yourself time before you drag him back left around the arena will generally end up with better results, or at least it did for me. But that is not the case for Time Rot Javelin because um, we we really need to just sort of sit in this corner, and I can't have him on the other side of the arena when he procs because you can't really control when he's going to phase in a good way because it's a dot. Sometimes he has 2 ticks on him, sometimes he has 9, sometimes he has 12, and then if you don't manage it properly, or at least it's very hard to manage it properly, he'll transition on the other side of the arena, and then the Harbinger will be out. The Harbinger cannot be out for any long period of time. It's an immediate like game over. It's not. I'm being a little bit of facetious, but it's it's too much. You want the Harbinger dead as soon as possible, as quickly as you can manage it, or at least chunked very hard, so then you can follow up with a like clean and concise kill. I'm actually not even sure how that happens in this, but so the strategy for this was always to dodge away, then I void cleave back to here. Then he either swings at me or he drops the frozen chilled orb. So he swung at me, so now he's gonna drop a chilled orb. So you bait the chilled orb over, and then I dodge over, and then I javelin again. And now I'm pretty sure anomaly there. Yeah. So I anomaly to do damage because the next thing that's likely coming is either slam hop I think it's slam hop charge or pizza. Um Most of the time he will pizza you in this position. If he slams you in this position, it is one of the rarest iterations of the fight. It does not happen very often. It's almost always pizza. Um it's just something it's I don't know how they programmed it. It's just the way it works. So if you get slammed while you're in this corner, it's just a do-over, just try it again or something like that until you get a better iteration. So right now he's pizzaing. So another interesting thing to talk about here, and it really affects the strategy of the entire fight, and you'll see me employ this strategy because of the way the damage ends up being. Um, when you do an anomaly, it consumes. So if you can see now, it consumes all the time rot stacks of damage on the boss, and because that's because we're talented in it. If you take a look at the talent on Anomaly, it is Anomaly no longer sends enemies forward in time. Effects that would be triggered when enemies return to the present and instead triggered immediately. So I'm pretty sure that that means all the time rot and everything that comes from being applied to them gets applied instantly. But that has a very negative effect on this fight. That means that the minute you blow them up with anomaly, all your time rot stacks are gone, and all of your leeching is just completely gone. You are not. I'm now leeching nothing in this fight right now. If anything, it's like if I had a poison stack, it'd be like a low poison leech or something like that. I think. I'm not even sure if it leeches poison, so don't shoot me if I'm wrong. Um, you are officially in danger in this position. So because of that, and because I can't just phase the boss really easily, you actually have to do a lot of the mechanics. So the most dangerous periods of time that you have in the fight, meaning uh, time where you do not have time rot on them, is very dangerous. So you have to play around this. Now, the strategy that I came up with for this section of the fight where I have to manage, this hot cold. I'm leeching, I'm safe. I blew up the boss. I did a bunch of damage, but now I'm not safe. What I did to manage this is after I pop an anomaly, what should be coming up here is you'll see another void cleave, another javelin, or another void cleave. Either one is fine. I specifically void cleaved away to move this laser to the top. Laser positioning on this fight with this character and this level of damage is very important. Um, so I'm over here. He had time run on him. It's okay. I knew he was going to try and leap. He's either doing one of two things in this section after you do this. He's leaping over towards you, or he's going to slam you from off screen where basically if you get in range of what he would consider the length of the slam, it seems like he will slam you from there, and it could be off screen. You just have to listen for it and make sure you're out of the way. So he chose to leap on me. So I should be doing the combo. That's the void cleave. That's the javelin. And then if you see here, I try and get some sneaky ass damage in by hitting anomaly, and then I void cleave, and then I javelin again. So anomaly isn't off cooldown, but I wouldn't anomaly here anyways because I want to be safe because although I'm trying to get damage in, this is the leeching phase. So often this fight, and I'm still doing damage because I have 12 stacks of time rod on him. And the damage over time that we're stacking on the character is actually relatively useful. So we're going through this. I will do a combo where I do Void Cleave, then I do Javelin, and then I do not Anomaly on purpose. It's not a mistake. During the fight, if I am not dumping anomalies into him for damage, it's because I have chosen to try and do small amounts of damage. It will just do damage over time. I mean, they tick for quite a bit, anyways. But it means I'm leeching and I'm safe, and I have a higher chance of not accidentally dying. The amount of times that I have done this fight and died to 5, 10, 12, 15 damage, 25 damage because I'm just degenning and I had nothing going on and my life dropped and I died and it was so quick I didn't see it. It is very, very often that happens. I had many tries where I just fell over and died. I didn't even know why. I didn't even notice I was dying until it was too late and it was over. Um, so I'm still gonna like come in here and try and dump an anomaly on him because again, he just pizzaed. He's super safe right now. And I know that the next one, right? If you come look at the damage here, he's really close to transitioning. And if you get him right, so if you come to here and you transition here, you avoid a slam. The next thing that he's doing, it's either he could jump backwards and then charge you, he could whip you or whatever, but then he's going to slam you. There's nothing else that he's going to do in that scenario. And it's not 100%, but the high chances are he's going to do a slam. If you can avoid a slam being on the arena, it's pretty advantageous no matter what. So I transition him here. He's in an okay spot to transition. It is not my favorite. And in fact, I love when he transitions over on the left. He's much easier to deal with because when he does this transition, if you are standing next to him, he will continue to engage you. He might even melee you, he'll charge you, he'll do something like that. But after he charges you, he channels meteors. If you transition to this phase and he's over here, and you're all the way over here on the left, he will start charging meteors almost instantly. It's just sort of how the fight works. So, in a way, if you were to point the meteors up here and he starts charging and then you dash down, the meteors will, be in the wrong quadrant and you'll be safe. You can deal with it a couple different ways. My way of dealing with this right now is I know there's a laser coming out, so I want to be up here anyways. I just chose to be up here with him, and then he is going to charge me, so as you can see, and then he should start, he could either he could do the flame black hole, or he could basically start channeling meteors, is one of the two things. So he black holes me, and then he'll start doing meteors or something like that soon after. It definitely depends on your distance from him. So there's the meteor. So he has other things inside of it, like he will melee, he'll choose to melee, he'll choose to charge, he'll slam, and by that I mean the whip slam, not the big slam, not the fire. And then when he sort of runs out of those things, he'll meteor charge. But that overall, like, that was I had to let the harbinger come over. I dashed through. If you could see that, I don't anomaly the harbinger both times. I generally void cleave and then javelin, and then actually those ticks are really big on the harbinger, and they kill it very quickly, even if you can't get an anomaly in. So harbinger being out is super sketchy on this build. There's times where the harbinger will dash at you and you dash away from them, and then she moves again and you miss your javelin, you miss your void cleave, and like an entire cycle of 7 seconds of damage is completely gone, and it's super frustrating when it happens, and it's totally just bad luck and you have to do the run over again or try and salvage it. But it's just the way the build plays, and sometimes you just lose. It's just not great. Um, so I was lucky here. The harbinger died and that he started to immediately channel. He was in a good position, so all of this is safe. So I'm looking to dump as much damage on as possible. So I anomalied him instantly as soon as I could, and then I could just continue the fight here. So you just void cleave javelin, and like dodge through void cleave javelin, and when I can, when I feel safe, I try to anomaly him, and then when I anomaly him, you'll see the time. There it is. You'll see the time rot stacks drop, and you'll see him take a big chunk of damage. Um, so I do drag him over here just because of the nature of the fight. It would have been weird to drag him on the left side. It was already over there. I do not like fighting in this quadrant. I think it's one of the most dangerous quadrants in the fight during this time, especially on this build. This build does not have a lot of leech going on. Again, I mentioned that you had to drop half of it. You have to spend half of it with no time leeching. So these fire pools essentially can really wreck you. They're not fun to be in. So I try to not be over here. I would prefer to be on the other side, but like I said, the void beams are very important in the placing when you get to the final circle, and you'll see why. Um, and I was trying to stay close to the bottom angle of this quadrant at this point because when you transition to phase two, and the other phase is coming where the harbinger comes out in the corner, I like to be in the bottom quadrant, and this is because you want to bait the death swings as much as you possibly can, away from anything, and then you just go up top and give yourself the most amount of time with builds that don't have just insane on command DPS. You give yourself the most amount of time to kill the harbinger. Hopefully, you should see that. This is just normal, trying to avoid everything, avoiding slams. So right here, very worried. I was very worried. So I'm in the most dangerous quadrant. The ground slam just went down. It's huge area denial. I have no room to use my void cleave. This is like super dangerous right now. I'm very worried about the run at this point. I was worried it was just gonna be over. That's why I'm trying to get the hell out of there. I'm literally this is me being like, fuck this. I'm leaving this quadrant. So this is me just trying to drag him over. I love this quadrant a lot. It can suck because you can get massive stacking pools, and if he channels in it, you basically just negate damage. You can't, do anything because you get 20 stacks of frailty really quickly, and then you're just stuck doing nothing. It's really crappy, but it is by far the safest place to be. The pools don't do any damage. It's just you have to manage your stacks of frailty, so it's hurting you in a passive way, where if you manage it very poorly, you'll have a bad time because three extra lasers came out because you lost so much DPS because you're frailty. So just something to manage when you're in this quadrant. And like you can see that I have frailty, so I have 7, 8, 9, 10 stacks. It just happens really quickly. I'm doing 50% less damage. But then you manage your stacks by letting you walk out. You just let them drop off, and then with this build, it works out well too because you could go in, do a bunch of damage. Sorry, this transition and I wasn't ready. So here I transition him. I started to leave early. This is actually a mistake. I didn't mean to leave this early. I probably like would have stayed out in this quadrant, or I could have stayed over here and just baited the laser away. But I was just hyper focused on getting to the harbinger because this phase has been causing me problems. Like getting away from him, disengaging from him, and getting over to the harbinger has caused me a lot of issues with this build. Even with the two soul cleaves, you can really only use one, because you need the other one for when you get over to the harbinger, and you really don't want to get over to the harbinger with low HP and not be able to leech because you'll have nothing. And you will basically just fall over and die when he attacks you. And so you have to save the void cleave. So I went too early. Luckily enough, there was enough space. And I'm pretty sure I'm at the very edge of it anyways, so I think I would have been safe no matter what. Um, so I just ducked into this corner. Everything's fine. I know he's coming over to come get me anyways. You can see that I don't anomaly right there. So the best strategy I thought with the harbingers, at least the way I was dealing with them, is you dump a void cleave on them. I said soul cleave at one point, I think. You dump a void cleave on them, and then you hit them with a javelin and you let them tick. You can see that it's already ticking for quite a bit. He's already halfway through. When I think he's low enough, I pop an anomaly when he has time rot stacks, and to end it. I don't want to go in balls deep. Try and end it on the first thing when he's there and have no anomaly, and I need him to be dead, and I can't get rid of him. I lost a lot of runs for stuff like that because he's around for too long. I was able to luckily so that was really sketchy right there. I was able to luckily get him just two solid procs of everything and dump him, and he was done right away. So that happened. I was lucky right here. that I was able to kill him. So uh, Uber put the void on me, or the black hole on me, and I know I need to clear these two puddles really badly. This would have been the third puddle down here would have been really good. Um, I started to do it, and I literally was focused on clearing, and I didn't know this was coming. This is total just reaction, like, oh shit. Because I even started to drift this way. I was going to try and be greedy and get more than one puddle. So I couldn't do that. When I saw the pizza coming out, I instantly, dodged away from that quadrant into that quadrant and then dodged out of that quadrant into the other quadrant. So, and then right on top of that, dude, it's just total insane RNG sometimes. I got a death immediately after that. I was just reacting quickly. I didn't know that was coming. I had no plan for it whatsoever. I am just absolutely lucky there's enough space in this corner that I just didn't completely die. I didn't, and I didn't turn soon enough. Like there's plenty of times where, he might be going to do that and I dash into the corner and then he hits me with a death and there's nowhere to go and you just fall over and you die. That is something that happens to me often when I'm doing this fight, and it's just sometimes he wins. That's sort of how it works. Here, I'm just trying to stay alive. I know the black hole is placed in a really good spot for me right now. Another strategy is to sit at the edges of the black hole, and you can completely ignore the void balls, because when you pop them, they instantly just fall off and die, and you don't have to worry about it. So you can see that there. I usually try to hang out near a black hole as much as I possibly can while it's up and not take any damage. Just normal dodging here. Death, try and place lasers. I was actually really annoyed about that laser because I had been good this whole time. That was just absolute luck that I did not die. I happened to be leeching. I didn't know a whirly bird was coming out. We're just lucky that we tanked it and we didn't die. If it would have crit me, it would probably would have killed me. So once this phase happens, on this build specifically on Time Rot Javelin, the minute he goes into this section, you are absolutely on the clock. You're kind of on the clock, the whole fight. You are super on the clock for this part. You want to dump as much damage into his mouth as possible, and you want to avoid the last circle as much as possible. So as much damage as you can do, just be greedy as possible. I'm trying to pump as much damage as I possibly can. I'm ignoring void stuff on the ground. I barely got out of that in time. I'm literally like, oh, I'm back in void damage. I'm in more void damage. Like it sucks because you lose damage because of the frailty stacks, but it's worse to not do anything. And with this build, you have to get as many anomaly procs in there as possible, because once you get into this section, and this took me quite a few tries to learn, because it's different in this build. It's definitely very particular. Um, I don't. It's not like anything I played in the other builds, and anything that can skip this final section is obviously way easier than any build that can't. So we're in the finals. We have to we have to really juggle the amount of time rot stacks that he has on him, because if he has time rot stacks on him over here and all of this is going on and I'm in a bad position, like, and I have to run through beams, which, I run through void damage here. I'm leeching, but I'm leeching back, and that's because he has time rot stacks on him. um if I was to pop anomaly on him during this and then run through these puddles, I would probably die before anything interesting happened in the final circle. And that happened to me quite a few times, and I realized, oh, I need to think about this fight, even in the final circle, as two phases. One, I'm leeching from him and I'm safe, and two, I'm doing damage to him and I'm being greedy. And that's sort of like hot cold, and you have to play it like this. So right now I'm leeching, everything's fine. I'm in the other side of the circle. I know I'm good. Even if I, make a couple whoopsies and I eat up a couple balls, it'll be just fine. You hang out on the so when you're done with the final circle, you do not when the first slam goes, you do not charge back into him, because you need to see his first ability before you go back to the boss, because more than likely you get a black hole. You could be it could be a coal black hole or it could be a fire black hole. Fire black hole is obviously really good because you get to clear an absolute crap ton of waste from the arena. Um, the Everything is much better. Cold black hole ends the run. If you drop a cold black hole over in the spot where he slams, the run is basically done. You whoopsied. It's like, GG, go next. So you have to not do that. And sometimes he will throw a whirly blade when you're off screen, and you just have to worry about making sure you catch it so you know it's there and making note it's there, because whirly is super dangerous in the final phase. But you definitely don't you want to bait out the black hole every time on the after the first slam. So black hole's baited, and now we're on our way back in. So he actually he's hitting me right now, melee, boom, right away, melee, right in this position. So I think he had, let me check before I lie to you. So he has no time rot stacks on him. I mean, it's two. You can think of that as none. And one of the first things, this is a dangerous position because the time rot stacks fall off. Again, I'm not leeching, and I dash back over, and I can't dash to him because I generally have to go through the middle. Going through the middle is generally a no-no. That's a good way to instantly die. And the first thing he does when you get over here is he whacks you in the face. It pretty much happens all the time. There's so many iterations of this where you come back over after the final circle slam, and he just melees you in the face. So you always have to be ready for it. And like, I'm pretty sure I pot out of this one, or I might have used a pot early, but now I don't have any pots, so I'm in super danger mode, and I need to get time rod stacks on him immediately because I need to go back to leeching because it basically almost kills me. Um, so this is how I like to play the final circle. We put the beams in relatively good places, and this gives. I mean, some of these suck. So this, I like to stay on this side and like trend toward the edges if you can, because if he does drop another black hole, does do something, you can place it in a really good position to give you the most surface area possible. What he just did there was he did one of my least favorite, and I think the most punishing thing that you could possibly do in the final circle is he slammed, but luckily it was tracking off on the left side. But this area denial here, he's denied all the way up to like half of his body right now, and that is most of the safe circle at this point. And I really just don't want to mess with it. And like, I honestly think at this point I'm trying really hard, but the I think the run's gonna be done. I'm not sure that I can actually finish this run. The next thing he does is he's void beaming me, which is again super bad. At this point, I'm like, oh great, this is totally over. Like we have cold black hole still going on. Sorry about that. My headset just turned off. So cold black holes going on. About to get void beam to the face, and he has a super big area denial going on, which really sucks. It's just not good for any of us. So here's what ends up happening. So I dodge through. Again, dodging through again is going to be safe because I can go right through. Dodge the void beam. He channeled it in the wrong direction. I'm going to come right back through, just trying to get it placed in the right place. I am now, I'm purposely not void cleaving, because void cleave is going to end the run. It's going to go here, or I'm going to go here. I can't control it. Like, if I could healing hands right now, I'd place my cursor somewhere, and I'd instantly go there, and it'd be totally fine, and I wouldn't be worried about it. But I'm playing super safe right here. I still have an insane amount of HP to go, and there's still a lot of final circle, so it's like you have to play really well. So I moved over. So I moved horizontally. Um, sorry, I moved horizontally here to try and deal with the fact that the void cleave can is okay to go up and down. It's very easy to go up and down. I dodged this pizza, and then now we're in final circle. I think I'm absolutely dead here. I'm trying to get time. I'm trying to get, so there's one time rod stack. I'm not leeching. I'm at 900 HP. I think it's over. I have 0 pots. I like panic javelin him. I get some time rod stats on him. I start leeching back up because I know I need to leech as much as possible. I somehow don't die. I dashed back over here. I was not. I wish I would say I was good enough to calculate all this. I wasn't. It was just luck. It was just luck that the time that the void cleave dashing didn't kill me right here. It has nothing to do with me being good. And so I just try and dump an anomaly into him to get away with it because I know he's charging on me. Like, thank God that the void slam is now gone. That is a huge, huge deal. When I saw the void slam be gone and we're at this stage in the fight, I was pretty sure this was going to be the kill. I was pretty excited. I was just trying to not choke. So again, I try to put in the right spot, trying to trying to void cleave, trying to leech, trying to do anything. So again, this here, Yes, he was, pointed in the right direction for this. I didn't know that he was gonna pizza. I had no clue this was a pizza. I was so focused on just not dying. And then I stepped right here. I was this close to just the run was being done. Is pizza kills me. This is the only safe spot. There's nothing I can do about this. It was just absolute luck that I had this space. And maybe it's luck and maybe it's I've done, a couple thousand Uber pulls at this point and I just know how it feels. But I've had plenty of other ways where this has gone where I just instantly die. And you get unlucky and it's just not, you got to play better next time. But this time, uh, I was able to secure a wonderful kill. So I dashed through here. I was just trying to kill him, just trying to be done. At this point, 350, 400 pulls into the fight, you just want it to be over. So it happened. And that's sort of my thoughts on everything. I think I covered pretty much everything I possibly can. I'm gonna throw this up with the sound on so you guys can see the full fight just like I would any other video. I wanted all of this explanation to be in it for you. I know it was really long. I think we're at 45 minutes right now. I hope this really helps sort of explain the intricacies in the fight and the things that can go wrong, the things that do go right, and how you can sort of account for them. And then in the context of a build that really struggles, really, really struggles in LP1 status for killing Uber. And I do not suggest it if you're an average gamer looking to pick up a build and you're gonna go in and try and crush Uber, I would not do it. It was gonna require a massive amount of time. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. I'm gonna turn the sound down and let it run in its full course. And I'll see you guys in the next one.
You fight nothing.
I cannot do that.
The void comes.
I cannot do that.
We got worthless.
I cannot do that. I cannot
We were denied. Terra turned her back on us.
You finally found peace.
Void hungers.
I cannot do that.
Aberon
I cannot do that.
lied to us.
I cannot do that. I cannot do that. I cannot. I cannot do that. I cannot do that.
The gods tore our world apart. They deserve their
I
fate.
cannot do that. I cannot do that. I cannot do that.
This reign.
I cannot do that.
The void comes.
I cannot do that. I cannot do that.
Treated the world no better. Death is our legacy.
I cannot do that.
The void hungers.
I cannot do that. I cannot do that. I cannot do that. I cannot do that. I cannot. I cannot do that.
The world called to Orobis.
I cannot do that.
City's answer. The void hungers.
I cannot do that. I cannot do
You
that.
fight for
I
nothing.
cannot do that.
The void comes.
I cannot do that. I cannot do that. I cannot do that.
We got
I cannot do that.
you fight for
I
nothing.
cannot do that.
The void comes.
I cannot do that. I cannot do that. I cannot do that. I cannot do that. I cannot do that.
What? No! Arubis! Help me!
Just a note for the talents. These are actually maxed out talents. This is a lie. It's something that happens when you make your talents a certain level and you don't actually level them. So all the points are allocated in these talents. You'll see it in the skill planner, but there were 22s, I think, across the board, and this one's 24.